Hello, what's up? Let me change this real quick. I'm lagging. It's kind of spur of the moment. Whoop. There we go. That should be better. Hey all, thanks for being here. So yeah, I'm going to do a little bonus live stream tonight. Unfortunately, I have some bad news, which is normally Thursday nights I do my friend Sarah Corrier's show, but due to a scheduling conflict, we aren't going to be able to do that this evening. So I figured I'll do a little live stream now, impromptu. So I apologize there's not more notice to this, but I didn't want to cheat people out of their rob time today. So, am I right, wife? Yeah. So yeah, thanks for being here. Unfortunately, another thing that's going on, I can't figure out what's going on with my computer here. It's so slow today. So we'll try my best. Let's see what we got. But I had some charts that I wanted to show you. We'll see if I'll be able to bring those up that have to do with the COVID numbers. But I think that every day we're starting to see that the lockdowns were an incredible mistake. They were a mistake both in theory and they're also a mistake in practice. And that's going to be incredibly important. Now, I'm not someone who is claiming to be clairvoyant or smarter than the average person or anything like that. But I know that a bunch of people that are smarter and better than me, the founding fathers, outlined the best blueprint for how to deal with emergencies and things like that would come up. The argument that's been being made over and over again that this is without precedent, this situation's without precedent, that's not true. I mean, yes, you could literally say this is a unique situation in the fact that every situation is unique. But the founding fathers dealt with diseases. They dealt with far more serious threats. I mean, when we were starting as a country, the threat to our country ending was quite real. There was never a threat that coronavirus was going to end the United States. So the founding fathers, if under those big threats that they were facing, whether it be from, populations and sort of kind of the conflicts that were going on in the United States, between between indigenous peoples, between outside threats for other countries like France, like the UK, or Britain at the time, I guess, and things like that, whether it be through illnesses, whether it be through famine, whether it be through all sorts of things. They dealt with these type of things. They outlined that blueprint, so that's how I was able to make these predictions. It wasn't that difficult. But we'll get to more of that in specific. So I wanted to start off the show by saying I want to again thank my buddies Anton Martz and Tyler Upper for my sweet new shirts. I think they're awesome. They come in red and blue. I don't know if I'll be selling these, giving them away, or what, but they generously donated a lot to me. You could go to hoppercorp.com if you have needs for branding, for shirts like that, or if you have a business or something like that, and he'll be able to help you on your way. So thanks to him. That's not someone who paid me to advertise or anything like that. That's literally friends of mine from high school that just like the show. And I know Carlos, more Courtney. Courtney's grumping watching Chopped in the other room right now. So we watch, if you ever watch the show Chopped, you got 4 contestants and they each make them like an appetizer, then they get rid of one, then they make an entree and they get rid of one, then a dessert. We each pick 2 people and we see who could guess. My belief is, because she beats me so often, she watches the episode ahead of time while I'm at work, and then when I come home, she's always able to pick the winner. That's my theory. No response. Maybe taking a nap by now. So we'll see if I get some of these charts up, but let's just talk in theory what's going on right now, just without the charts, stuff you won't need. So I think the story... What, are you coming to yell at me? Another shirt?
No, I didn't realize you had one.
Yeah. My wife throws me another shirt. It didn't have a brick or anything in it when she threw it at me.
No, I'm watching. It's upside down.
I'll put it right side up. What are you still watching Chopped?
Yeah.
Am I winning?
No.
My guy lost? Yeah, there's my shirt. Thank you, wife. I lost 3 people since you threw that shirt at me. Thank you. Love ya. So let's just talk about in a broad sense of what's happening. So I've been talking to you about Sweden. I've been talking to you about places like Georgia, Texas, Florida. If you go back and you look a couple weeks ago, you saw that the Atlantic, the journal that's supposed to be prestigious, they were predicting that there would be mass deaths in Florida based on Florida's decisions. If you go to Jennifer Rubin, local propagandist and hack for the deep state, she said that what Florida was doing opening was tantamount to human sacrifice. So you finally saw Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, come out and basically just let loose, where he just goes ballistic on the people. Like, and his argument is very sound, even though he's irate, which I really appreciate as someone who gets irate myself. And the argument goes something like this. Look, they all predicted, not that deaths would go up a little, they predicted catastrophe for Florida. That's what all the lockdown people said. It's going to be a catastrophe. Not only have the numbers not gone up, they've decreased steadily. And so the experts, the doctors, the media people, the fearmongers, the Democrats that have told you, no, you can't open, or everyone will die, were wrong. Now, this is particularly unique and important in the case of Florida, because Florida has more of an elderly population. As we all know, it's even kind of a joke in our country, right? You get older, you move to Florida, and that's true. There's a lot of nursing home communities there, retirement communities. So you would think a place like Florida would be uniquely susceptible to COVID, because we know the number one factor in whether or not COVID is serious to you is age, comorbidities and age. By the way, if you look at the stats, it's not just comorbidities. This is something that hasn't been talked about much. There are plenty of younger people with comorbidities, but they're not dying at big clips from COVID either. It seems like having an advanced state of age along with a comorbidity is what is necessary to be really in that most vulnerable group. So that would put a place like Florida at high risk, you would assume. Now, granted, you also need things like population density that would allow the virus to spread more and things like that. But Florida doesn't rank towards the low end of things like that either. Certainly not the same as New York City or maybe New Jersey, but, it's not South Dakota, And even DeSantis is correct in saying, look, he makes this distinction. He says, obviously we're doing better than places like New York that you consider more urban areas. But they're also doing best in their corridor. So if you look at Louisiana, Georgia, Florida's doing better than all of those states that surround them as well, that have similar demographics as them. So what is Florida's secret? And DeSantis goes on to say, look, you all cheered against me. You all said I was terrible. But now that things are doing well, you don't want to cover it. You wanted to make him out to be a monster. You wanted to make it out that, DeSantis and the Republican Party in Florida, they didn't care about the elderly. Yet the elderly are doing better in Florida than they're doing in these other places. Now, why is that? And I would contend that the more science we get, right. We saw beaches at full capacity where people were saying, oh my goodness, no one's following the lockdown orders, or they're not properly social distancing. We're going to see an explosion. We didn't see it. Why is that? Well, I think that what the science will bear out eventually. Now, listen, when I say this, I'm talking about actual data. I'm not talking about propagandists in the media or the Democratic Party or the deep state or even propagandist scientists that have something to push to you like a vaccine. They're going to spin this however they want. But when you actually look at the data and make the confirmation for yourself, what will be seen is that the lockdown didn't do much of anything anywhere across the world. And we're seeing that over and over. That now scientists from Oxford, models from JP Morgan, which I have no love for JP Morgan, but their model I looked at, and they make this claim. We see all over the place that people are making the claim. The lockdown and the severity of the lockdown almost have no correlation with deaths per capita. None at all. At all. In fact, the Oxford paper, what it says is actually the most important thing was how soon you identified the risk and started to take precautions. But the actual lockdown itself, or the severity of those precautions, are basically irrelevant according to the data we see. And that makes sense when you look at places like Sweden that didn't lock down fully, when you look at Georgia that opened early, when you look at Florida that opened early, when you look at South Dakota. And then on the inverse of that, when you look at the countries that locked down the hardest, like the UK, their per capita numbers are much higher. And so it's starting to seem like the data is going to suggest that. So what did Florida do? Now the lockdowns, then there's a question of, did the lockdowns kill more people? And I think that that's a debate we're going to be having for years now, because the virus was going to, here's mowing and stuff. Allergies. Anyways, When the virus kills someone, we know that the numbers are inflated. We know that they're calling anyone who has I have a cough like that. If I'd walk out to get the mail and get hit by a truck, they'd say I died of COVID because people heard me coughing. I get all that. But even if we just take the numbers at face value for a minute, when COVID kills someone, it's going to be more of an immediate thing. When an economic depression or a lockdown kills someone, it could take years to achieve that. For example, it could cause a rise in depression, which then leads to someone taking their own life a year or two from now. Or it could lead to poor eating and exercising habits, which causes high blood pressure, things like that, heart conditions, which could lead to deaths in the future. Or it could cause poverty, malnutrition, which could cause deaths in the future. You understand. So the jury's still out on how many deaths this lockdown will cause, and we're never going to have a full calculation of that because those type of numbers are hard to calculate. The best we could do is look at the average number of people that die in a particular country in 1 year versus how many died under COVID, and then how many will die post-COVID. So that's the best we'll be able to do, and everyone will spin that data how they want. But here's how you know my side was right, because we weren't predicting apocalypse if we didn't have a lockdown. That was their side. For example, the Imperial College model that the US and the UK used to justify their lockdowns predicted 25 times more people would die without a lockdown. Why aren't every single example we could see where people said, oh, no, Florida is engaging in human sacrifice. Texas is sacrificing people. Look at how horrible Georgia is. Look at how horrible Sweden is. Every single time we see those numbers came nowhere near what these fearmongers predicted. Nowhere close. That's incredible. It shows that they're wrong with what their data was. So what ends up happening is we crushed the economy and we took people's rights away for nothing. That's what the data is proving. And many of you predicted that just like me from the beginning. Yeah, Tracy, you're absolutely right. Dr. Shiva is great, and he talks specifically about how there'll be deaths from things that occur from this. And then there's also things you could do. I'm a big fat guy. One of the things you could do is eat healthy, exercise, things like that. That will not only help protect you from COVID, but from many other ailments as well. It's something I need to do better. I'm not going to sit here and talk about other medications, but there are reports and studies that show that medications that are currently on the market, such as the one zinc with hydrochloroquine and others, I can't verify that these work, but there are studies that show that there's promising results from them. Of course, the Faucis of the world, the deep state people of the world, they're going to downplay that because, one, they want to wipe out the working class. That's their agenda. And second, they want to make all this money off of their vaccine. That's the cure. You have to come to us for the cure, and we'll charge you huge amounts of money. How about that Barr Bush? But yeah. So, but what else did Florida do that was different? And I would contend is, again, it's weird. I hate to brag. Not really. I love to brag about myself. But isn't it weird if someone like me with no experience in epidemiology or virology or anything like that, not a medical professional, how was I able to correctly predict exactly what we should have done in order to limit the damage from COVID where all the experts couldn't? You go back and watch my shows from mid-March. Watch what I was saying. The way to deal with this virus is to protect the most vulnerable populations, to direct resources to those populations, to do what we can to make sure that those populations are isolated and aren't in contact with the disease. That's what I was saying in mid-March. Why do you think Florida's numbers are so much better than New York? Well, could it be because New York, along with my state of Pennsylvania, had policies that not only didn't protect the most vulnerable populations, but actually put them in more danger by forcing COVID-positive patients and workers back into the nursing home? In other words, they set up death camps in nursing homes in places like New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. They set up the conditions where if you're elderly and you get COVID, sorry, you can only go to the hospital until you're stabilized. We know that you're still going to be contagious, but we're forcing you back into the nursing home. We know that these nursing homes don't have the resources to properly isolate you. Therefore, we know that we're literally putting the virus at the doorstep of the most vulnerable people. And predictably, it spread there. And predictably, it led to deaths there. This isn't rocket science. Everybody knows that was a terrible idea. That's what New York and Pennsylvania did. What did Florida do? They didn't have as strict of a lockdown. To the sense they did have some of a lockdown. They were wrong, I believe. but they focused on protecting those vulnerable populations. As a result, their numbers are way better. Now, for those of you that talk to me and say, and I sympathize with you, and I wish you were right, and I've said this in the past too, and I'm wrong, that the mainstream media, no one listens to them. I've said that. That's not true. And you want to know how I know that? Did you know that Murphy, the New Jersey governor, that's the second worst state hit with COVID, and New York, that's the worst state with their governor Cuomo, their popularity is in the 70 to 80% right now. Fauci's popularity is 56%. Now, I know what you'll say. You can't trust the polls. I agree. But let's not kid ourselves. Those people are popular. There are a lot of people that think they know what they're talking about. How is that possible? Look, I've criticized Trump. I'll continue to criticize Trump. His lip service to the lockdown was an incredible mistake. He was the one person in a position to defend our constitutionally guaranteed rights and to make sure that the states didn't walk all over him. And not only didn't he do that, he actually paid lip service to those lockdowns, criticizing places like Georgia that tried to open up earlier, criticizing places like Sweden that tried to avoid a lockdown. So yeah, I'll criticize Trump. Absolutely. But how in the world can people out there say, look at the total deaths? We see the media and the Democrats say this all the time. They act like that somehow we could have had a situation with no deaths. They'll say 90,000 people dead, and when Trump's talking about something, if Trump killed those 90,000 people, how? Just today, we saw Cuomo again asked about these nursing home procedures, and he said, don't ask me, ask President Trump. Are you kidding? You're the one. Your state's the one who ordered that. Just like in my state of Pennsylvania, it was our governor, Tom Wolf, who ordered that. The nursing home policies. It wasn't Trump. It wasn't the federal system. So don't pass the buck now. Yet somehow, because the media, excuse me, and the leftists control the narrative so much, people are out there thinking, Trump's bad. Trump should have done more. And here's this hero, Cuomo and Murphy and Tom Wolf. Boy, they've done a great job. Yeah, I'm with you, Anon. There are problems. I criticize Trump greatly. He did surround himself with terrible people. So now we have the governor. The buck stops here, right? Says the governor of New York. Oh, wait, no. It's the other guy's fault. Okay. Again, I said the same thing about Trump. So let's say this about Cuomo and Wolf. You don't get to pass the buck and say it's all Trump's fault. Trump had all these policies. If that's true, then everyone that's saying Cuomo's a hero, look at how he saved New York, which is garbage. But all the people saying that somehow think that what New York is a success, then Cuomo's admitting, oh no, it wasn't me. I just listened to Trump. I didn't do anything. So how can we celebrate Cuomo as a leader then? Either Cuomo was engaged in leadership and you either liked or disliked his policies, or Cuomo wasn't and he was just listening to Trump, which means that you can't say, oh, he had great leadership here. He didn't do anything. He sat back and let Trump do things. No, it's a lie. We know what happened. These Democratic governors, such as Cuomo, they sentenced these old people to death, figuratively. They set the conditions that they knew would cause mass deaths in the elderly community, to the point where 65, 70, even higher than that percentage in some of these states are from long-term care facility deaths. Now, I was hoping to pull up some numbers, so bear with me. Maybe I'll be able to. Oop. Oh, boy. Give me a second. I'll try to keep talking while I'm looking this stuff up. But it's a chart of the percentage of deaths nationally broke down by age group, and I think this came from the CDC. Which, again, follow my friend, well, I guess acquaintance, Phil Kerpen on Twitter, which I'll bring up some of his tweets here in a second. And you can see for yourself. But he's done a fantastic job. Here we go. Let me just bring up some. I try to like these, so hopefully you can. Here you see Kerpen tweeting an article from Alpha News, Minnesota. No wonder Minnesota has its numbers the way it has. 608 nursing home, long-term care facility deaths. All other deaths, just 140 as of yesterday. That's 81%. And then the article says, Minnesota encourages hospitals to put COVID patients in nursing home. Chalk up another state. Let's see if I can find this. Hopefully. Children 5 to 14 are nearly 7 times more likely to die of the flu or pneumonia than COVID. And that's according to a CDC chart. That's unbelievable. Oh, I know where to look. Here we have a chart. Let's see if this comes up. This is from the Pennsylvania Department of Health. This is the percentage of people who died. Under age 20, the percent of people that have died from COVID in Pennsylvania is 0%. 20 to 24, 0.1%. 25 to 29, 0.1%. 30 to 34, 0.2%. So from the ages of 34 down, how many people have died of COVID in Pennsylvania? 7. 7 people have died in Pennsylvania from COVID, 35 or younger. Now, despite this, we've completely shut down schools in this state. How does that make sense? That is the least vulnerable population. So this does 2 things. One, you now, because you've locked all of that down, you have to provide resources for the families that now have to take care of these kids, for the lack of schooling that these kids will get, etc. So instead of putting the resources where you need it, which you can see is down here, right? Once we get into the 75-year-old population, instead of applying the majority of resources there, we've applied the resources through all of these ages. But second, and even worse than that, is you have destroyed economic and education opportunities for people 35 and younger, and only 7 people have died in the state. That's outrageous. It's undefendable. There is no justification whatsoever for this lockdown. None. Let's keep going. 35 to 39, 5 people have died. So 40 and under, 12 people have died of COVID in Pennsylvania. 12. More people die falling off roofs than that. 40 to 44, 21. 45 to 49, 45. So we have less than 100 people under age 50 that have died. Then you got 83, 50 to 54, 146, 55 to 59. Now you see the numbers climbing. Once you start to get to 55 and up, that's when you start to see it. And as Kirpin correctly states here, more people have died over age 85 than under age 80 of COVID. That's unbelievable. Let's see what else I can find here. This is from the chart that JP Morgan sent out. It means that the pandemic and COVID likely have its own dynamics unrelated to the often inconsistent lockdown measures that were being implemented. And here you can see we have the daily infection rate during the lockdown versus after the lockdown ended. And the numbers are almost identical. That's the data. Here, I'll play this for you. This is DeSantis.
Our data is available. Our data is transparent. In fact, Dr. Birx has talked multiple times about how Florida has the absolute best data. So any insinuation otherwise is just typical partisan narrative trying to be spun. And part of the reason is that because you got a lot of people in your profession who waxed poetically for weeks and weeks about how Florida was going to be just like New York. Wait 2 weeks, Florida's going to be next. Just like Italy, wait 2 weeks. Well, hell, we're 8 weeks away from that, and it hasn't happened. Not only do we have a lower death rate, well, we have way lower deaths generally. We have a lower death rate than the Acela Corridor, D.C., everyone up there. We have a lower death rate than the Midwest, Illinois, Michigan, Indiana.
Oh, boy. Sorry about the lag.
Ohio. But even in our region, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida has the lower death rate. And I was the #1 landing spot from tens of thousands of people leaving the #1 hot zone in the world to come to my state. So we've succeeded, and I think that people just don't want to recognize it because it challenges their narrative, it challenges their assumption, so they got to try to find a boogeyman. Maybe it's that there are black helicopters circling the Department of Health. If you believe that, I got a bridge in Brooklyn I'd like.
And look, I've talked to intelligent people, even on my show, that said or alluded to the fact they were disappointed with DeSantis' response. How do you explain the fact that they're going to stand to be in a better position economically and through all the carnage that was resultant of these lockdowns, and their numbers are still lower than places like New York City and their surrounding places? Here's more. So you hear people pointing to the data of Sweden saying, oh, Sweden has more deaths per capita than places like Finland. This proves that they were wrong not to lock down. But look, the important thing to know here is it wasn't just that they said there would be more deaths. It was that they said it would be catastrophic. And we're clearly not seeing that in Sweden. So here's a chart that shows their all-cause of deaths from 2019 onward through these months, from October to May. Now, as you can see here, this year, the numbers, let's bring up the chart so you can see. So this is this year with COVID. All causes of death, 59,000 and change. How is that number lower than 2017, 16, and 15? Granted, last year it was lower. It was 4,000 people lower. But even if we just take a look at last year, so what? COVID was responsible for 4,000 deaths? That's not the catastrophe that we were told. And it looks like 2018 was the outlier because 15, 16, 17, look at the deaths into the 60,000s from October 1st to May 10th, which is the period of time that COVID's ran its course. So why do we see less deaths with COVID that was supposedly going to be a catastrophe? Remember, it wasn't just, well, there'll be a few more deaths in Sweden if they don't lock down. We were told it would be a catastrophe. Yet they're doing better than they did in 2017, 16, 15. How do you explain that? And then it gets even worse than that because as this Twitter user says, of interest, population grew 2.3% over the period. So in population adjusted terms, this is actually 1.1% lower than 2017-2018 year. In fact, if we adjust for population, it's the second lowest season for all-cause deaths in the last 5. In other words, when you're looking at these deaths, just straight deaths per year in Sweden, remember the population's increasing. So with increased population, you would expect more deaths. Despite that increased population, Sweden, when actually, if we adjust for the population, we can see that Sweden's actually, and I'm sorry, that chart is the adjusted number. We can see that Sweden's actually in their second best year out of the past 5, despite not locking down for COVID. This is damning. And they point to Sweden, these experts point to Sweden and say, see, that's proof. This is from Oxford. Quote, there is little correlation between the severity of a nation's restrictions and whether it managed to curb excess fatalities. The countries with the most intense lockdowns look likely to suffer the most economically. Oxford. Trust the experts, right? Oh, no, all of a sudden we can't trust Oxford, right? The death rate in Germany is not significantly higher despite coronavirus. Then Kerpen says 3 hours ago, Pennsylvania really solved their long-term care COVID crisis by just not reporting the numbers anymore. Mistake solved, right? Let me see if I can find those national numbers for you real quick. I do apologize. This is why I'm always begging you for money. You can see my equipment's terrible here. Let's see here. Sorry, it's taking me a minute. A lot of me on here, huh? This is what I want to check. Let's see if this is it. So I'll keep talking for a minute while that hopefully loads. But you see the problem here. And I apologize. This is an impromptu live stream. So don't hold me to account. Yeah, Carlos, you're right. I mean, about the polls, not trusting the polls. But it's undeniable. We'll see. It's undeniable that the anger should be far more palatable for Cuomo, Murphy, Tom Wolfe if we had a free press, because the average person isn't listening to a show like mine. The average person doesn't really care what any media says. But what's infiltrating into them is, oh, these governors that took things seriously, they're doing a great job. They're heroes. They took it seriously, and the other governors didn't take it seriously, and Trump didn't take it seriously. When in reality, their policies directly cause people to die. By the way, Carlos, you'll be interested in this. If you watch Tucker's show, I think last night, Mastriano, who is the state senator that did, me and Carlos actually have a radio show, which you can follow us every Saturday at 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. We had State Senator Mastriano on with us talking about these nursing home policies. He actually got to go on Tucker last night and talk about this, so it's worth checking out, both our show and that. Here we go. Now we're talking. This is from the CDC. This is reported COVID deaths by age from February 1st to May 16th. Under 24 and under in the entire country. 24 years old and under, we have 76 plus 10, 86, 88 deaths. 24-year-old and under, we have 88 deaths. Now, let's take elementary schools in particular. That would encompass this section here, ages 5 to 14. 7 deaths. Yet the premier expert on this, Dr. Fauci, is saying that we need to shut down schools in the fall as well. Why are we shutting down these elementary schools if 7 people have died? More children die of choking hazards every year. 7 people! It's outrageous! 7! And you can see here, the bulk of these deaths, we're talking basically 10,000 people from 65 or under that have died. That's a statistical blip. Yes, every death is tragic, don't get me wrong. But again, the question is, why was this situation unique? If you followed my channel, one of the first things I said, the importance of asking these questions and getting answers before we sacrifice our rights, such as, what do your models say how many people will die? What do your models say why a lockdown will be able to solve that? How many people will die as a result of the lockdown? And then importantly, what is your threshold for when you justify the taking away of people's rights like this? In other words, was the government worried that 1 million people was going to die? That's what justified it? Were they worried that 1,000 people were going to die? Because we as Americans, we can't accept that, every death, we have to shut everything down for every death. If we did that, we would never leave the house. The government would have tanks outside every community, making sure no one ever leaves the house. Is that how you want to live? Of course not. So then it becomes a question of threshold. When do we accept this government intervention? I would suggest the threshold would be extremely high, to the point that it would almost never be possible. But even if it was, it would be up to the government to be transparent and answer those sorts of questions. Otherwise, and this is exactly what I said in my first videos talking about this, what makes COVID different than West Nile? What makes COVID different than H1N1? What makes it different than SARS? Remember all those fear-mongering, right? All this stuff was going to kill us. Mad cow disease, foot and mouth disease. We saw that it wasn't near what the catastrophic numbers of deaths that people like Neil Ferguson, head of the Imperial College model, that we had to listen to. He was an expert. That's what he was predicting since 2001. Every year, it seems like he predicts a disease is going to wipe out tens of thousands, if not millions of us, and then it kills a couple hundred people. Should we have shut the economy down for every one of those viruses? If so, that comes along every 2 years, it seems. So we're just going to completely we'll be open 1 year, and then the next year, West Nile again, sorry, shut down the country for a year. Is that what we're going to do? And they said, no, this one's different. This one's a catastrophe. It's different. Never mind the fact they're inflating the number of deaths, as we've talked about ad nauseum. But look at this. Less than 10,000 deaths from people less than 65. Now again, every death matters, and I'm not belittling the deaths of elderly people. But Shutting down the economy was not the best way to curb the deaths in those groups from the 65 and older crowd. The best thing to do was to allow that younger crowd to continue working, to continue have their rights, and directing our resources to places like nursing homes, to places like hospitals that would have seen a rush on senior citizens. Instead, not only did we not direct our resources there, but many times we actually had governors that issued policies that encouraged the deaths of those groups by forcing them to remain in nursing homes where they knew that they would have, where they would run into this virus or be exposed to the virus, and then not getting the proper help. They wanted to, Pennsylvania and New York and these other states, they wanted to keep their hospitals empty and pristine because they were worried there'd be a rush on them. And so to do that, they told the actual people that were dying of COVID, sorry, we can't help you. What kind of sense does that make? These numbers do not justify a lockdown, and they're inflated, and they still don't justify a lockdown. Yeah, whoopings it. So, did you see this video? It's disgusting. Let's see if I can bring it up. I almost hate to bring it up, but it's the big story of the day on Twitter, and it should be in the sheer grotesqueness of it. Don't get me wrong. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, I'm on that thread. So there was a video that was going out on Twitter, and it was, I believe the person works in a nursing home facility, and he's beating up his patients. So let's see if I can bring it up for you. This is hard to watch, I warn you. Maybe if my computer ever decides to. But there's a reason I'm showing you this. Maybe. Oh, computer. This is very tough to watch, I warn you. We'll just watch a couple seconds of it. I don't know what's going on with my computer today. Try one more time, and if not, you could see what's going to happen. This gentleman here decides to pummel this old man. And it caused instant outrage. It went viral. People... What's going on? It went viral. Tens of thousands of people were tweeting about it, and it actually resulted in an arrest. Because this is how terrible some nursing homes are, where you have someone who's supposed to be a caretaker who's punching old men and women to the point where they're bleeding profusely for minutes at a time and filming it. I mean, it's unimaginable. It's grotesque. But my point that I'm making is, and this is what I say, it is grotesque. Remember, though, Democratic governors like Cuomo and Wolf ordered COVID patients in nursing homes, causing mass deaths. Oh, here you go. You can see. Oh, for crying out loud. You've seen enough. I can't even stomach to watch any more of it. But that goes on for a minute and a half. And that is grotesque, and thank goodness people that saw that reported it, and hopefully reports are, that guy's in jail. Why can't we do the same with Governor Wolf and Cuomo? Yes, this grotesque instance of this caretaker physically beating an old person, that's disgusting. But we have leaders that intentionally set up situations where the old people died of COVID. That's what they did. Just so they could take your rights away. They asked you to sacrifice and said, if you don't sacrifice, you want old people to die. That's what they told all of us. And then when we sacrificed, they set up policies during that sacrifice that said, oh, by the way, the elderly aren't allowed to get access to hospitals. They have to stay in these nursing homes that will become death camps for COVID, where it will spread through all of these homes, leading to around 70% of the people that die being from these long-term care facilities. And then they have the nerve to say, well, hey, what did Cuomo say the other day? These people were going to die anyways. There's nothing we could have did to save their lives. And then they say, oh, and by the way, blame Trump. But then lastly, they point to the deaths and say, see how many people died? That proves that COVID was a horrible deal. Yeah, because you bungled up the reaction. You caused those deaths. You didn't cause it directly, but you set the conditions up knowing. You knew that this would cause mass deaths in these nursing homes. So while you paid, and this is the Democratic Party, by the way, in a nutshell. Every group that they point to, oh, we need to help, we need to help immigrants. Oh, we need to help the inner city black community. Oh, we need to help the homosexual community. Every single one of those groups, they don't want to help. They hope those groups perpetually do horrible so that they can then virtue signal every 4 years and say, see, you need our help to save you. Vote for us. That's what they want. That's exactly what they did. They pretended to speak up. They said that if you had a question with giving them a blank check, with giving them the power to take away your rights, with giving them the power to take away your livelihood, if you had questions about that, well, then clearly you wanted old people to die. Meanwhile, they're setting the conditions up for old people to die. When they're asked about it, they either don't respond, they pass the buck, or they say, those people are going to die anyways. And then the final insult is, after using elderly people as a token and setting up the conditions for them to die, the final insult is they point to those deaths and say, see, this proves we were right. COVID's a big deal. Now give us more power. We need more of a lockdown. It's outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. And that's what's going on with COVID. So look to Florida, right? Did Florida handle it perfectly? No. I've said this all along. I was against the lockdown. I was flabbergasted that so many supposed fiscal and constitutional conservatives went along with the lockdown initially. But it happened. I told you that the biggest threat to our country wasn't the virus. It's not even the economic destruction, which will be horrible. It could take 10, 15 years to recover. But the biggest threat was setting the precedent that based on fear, the government could take our rights away at a moment's notice. They'd come take your kids away. They could contract trace you to, send drones out to see where you're at every day. They can make sure you're not in a restaurant. Let me tell you a story real quick about a local restaurant bar owner that I know. Young guy, takes pride in owning this restaurant. He's been able to be open for just a few hours to have takeout. Now, normally he's a bar as well, and this would be one of his busiest times a year. We live next to a big national forest, Cook Forest, and you have a lot of people that come in for the spring and summer months, fishing, just camping out and things like that. And so a lot of the little towns around here, if you have a restaurant or a store, you actually get a bump in business. This is one of your busier times a year because you get all these new people coming in, many of which are kind of on vacation. So, extra dollars to throw around. Which is a good thing. Instead, that he has to be shut down, and all he could do is have takeout from like 4 to 8 or something like that. So this is a story I heard. He sees a person outside and assumes it's a customer that's about to come in, and he says it's like 3 o'clock. He says, "Oh, you can't come in. We don't open until 4." No, it's not a customer. It's someone from the Liquor Control Board, and they're there making sure, just being paid to sit in his parking lot of this little restaurant in this little town in rural Pennsylvania. We have a state employee that's being paid to sit there and make sure that he doesn't serve alcohol to anyone or have anyone that goes in to get a takeout order that's in there too long. Fast forward, a couple weeks later, friends come, a couple people got beer to go. They come walking out, get grilled by Liquor Control Board person in the parking lot. Who bought those beers? What time did you buy them? How much did you pay? Who bought each one? Making sure, because you can only carry out a 12-pack, they wanted to make sure. That's how ridiculous. That's where we're putting our resources. That's what Pennsylvania is now. Brown shirts, making sure that you don't serve someone food in an improper way. That's what this state is. That's one story of one person I know. How many people have stories like that all across the state? All across the country? How many places will never open back up? Many. The federal numbers are 40% of people that make under $50,000 a year have lost their job. 40% of the poorest people. It's out of control. It's absolutely out of control. Yeah, thanks, Tracy. Cook Forest, Brookville, awesome place. Yep. What's up, Jack? Thanks for being here. 223, thank you. Yeah, let's talk about Trump. I see Anon's talking about Trump. Here's my feelings on Trump. I think Trump ultimately meant well. I'll be totally honest. This is what I think about Trump. I think Trump actually did care about working class people. He probably still does. He cares about working class people. I think he does. I think he takes pride in the country. I think that he saw a corrupt system and thought, I could get in there and I could change things. I also think that Trump's not the 4D chess player that everyone says. He's a human, and so he had to surround himself with people, and he chose poorly. He surrounded himself with John Bolton, with Cohen, with all these other people. And they have an active interest in maintaining the hegemony, or the status quo of the establishment that had power. They don't want some new guy coming in. So they're seeking to thwart him and also harm America, because that's what they want to do, usher in globalism. That's what it's about. And so Trump listens to these people. Now, oftentimes, people that are Trump supporters can speak up and it changes Trump's mind. So we saw this with gun control. Trump's not an ideologue on gun control. He's just like, whatever. But when he saw so many of his supporters say, no, the Second Amendment is so important, then he came out on our side and he stopped listening to the people around him. Now, that's not the greatest thing in the world. I've just said some bad things about Trump. He does surround himself with bad people. And he's not ideologically inclined to protect a lot of the things that I am. But one of the positive things is he is willing to listen to his constituents. That's what shocked me about the lockdown and him paying lip service to the lockdown. Because I had so many Trump supporters either leave my channel or criticize me or stop watching my videos or on the blogs where I'm at tell me I'm a secret George Soros person in disguise. No. If Trump's for the lockdown, then we're for the lockdown. Trump's always right. And I'm like, no, now would be the time to stand up and make your voice heard right at the beginning. No, we will not accept this lockdown. And if Trump saw millions of his supporters saying that, he would say, yeah, to heck with you, Dr. Fauci. But instead, we saw even the most ardent Trump supporters, some of them, say, no, we're for the lockdown. That's what they initially said. I didn't sell out. I didn't change. I stuck to my principles of liberty and personal responsibility. I don't worship any one politician. I'll like a politician if they are sticking up for the principles I believe in. And I understand. I say this all the time on this channel. If you're truly someone who tries to think for yourself, you will never find another person in the world that agrees with you about everything. Ever. It's just impossible. And therefore it goes to stand. You won't find a politician or a political party that agrees with you on everything. You just won't. That's fine. Some differences are fine. And I'm not saying that I'm right all the time. I could be wrong, of course. So I'm not just like, if someone disagrees with me on one little thing, I hate them. That's not what I'm saying. I'll still vote for Trump. He's better than the alternative. But he made a huge mistake. And if you're honest about it, this infringement of our rights this year, right now, I'm 35 years old. This is the biggest infringement of my rights in my lifetime. Quite possibly right up there with the history of this country. That's under Donald Trump. Now you could say, but it's the Democratic governors. It's Wolf. It's Cuomo. Yes, the Democrats are worse. Yes, these governors have uniquely terrible plans that they're implementing. But that's what they want. They want to collapse the working class. They want to collapse the country and have people have massive wealth redistribution and be reliant on the government. That's what they want. That's what the globalist establishment's about. Right? So yes, I'll continue to criticize them, as you've seen here. But I'm still going to criticize the Republicans and Trump for going along with it. And it wasn't just that, it's a federalism issue. Trump just let the states do what they want. That's not his job. His job was to be a leader. His job as the chief executive is enforcing the Constitution. And that means enforcing rights we have for things like the right to peacefully assemble, the right to petition the government for grievances, the right to worship as we see fit. Our Fourth Amendment rights that they're now talking about. Contact tracing. We'll send drones out and invade everyone's privacy and we'll make your phone have apps so we can see everyone you've came into contact with. Trump and his DOJ should be nipping that in the bud right now. Instead, what was he doing? He's talking to Newsom. He's talking to Cuomo as they're doing their lockdowns. Then he's getting on national television saying, yes, these governors are doing a great job. He's criticizing the governor of Georgia when he decides to open up. He's criticizing Sweden when they decide to not fully lock down. Is it because Trump's an evil person? No, I'm not saying that. It's just my opinion. You could make that argument maybe. It's my opinion that he's listening to corrupt establishment people around him. I don't expect the person who's a businessman and becomes president of the United States to also be an expert epidemiologist. He's going to have to listen to someone. But it's clear that that person is wrong and either inept in Dr. Fauci or corrupt, which is my take. How is it that someone like me, a rank amateur, was able to be more accurate than the World Health Organization, the CDC, the Imperial College, Dr. Ferguson, Dr. Fauci? Me, a guy who makes less than $50,000 a year in a totally unrelated field. I was able to be more accurate than them? And here's another downside of Trump, right? I'm sick and tired of this. We outed the criminals, we outed the deep state, we outed them, but we're not going to charge them. And Barr saying, we're not going to have a criminal. And here's the key word. Everyone, all the people that want to disagree with me go, listen to his language carefully. Oh, I listened carefully. He said we're not going to have a criminal investigation based on what we see currently. Now, I'm not asking for criminal charges. Of course, I want the rule of law to be followed. I want there to be a proper investigation for the crimes that we could see that were clearly committed, for the people that we know were conscious of those crimes, such as Biden, Obama, Comey, Brennan, Clapper, Susan Rice, etc. I want that criminal investigation to proceed. If evidence can be found of the crimes and who's exactly committed, we know that there's evidence of the crimes, but who exactly committed them, those people should be held accountable. But Barr said, no, we're not even going to, based on what we see right now, we're not going to have a criminal investigation. Investigation, not charges, investigation. Why is Biden and Obama off that list of possible criminal investigation? Was there a crime? Yes. For example, in the Flynn case, we know that only a handful of people knew about Flynn being unmasked, 16 to 30, something like that. We know that then that got leaked to the media. Therefore, that's a felony, leaking that information to the media. So those 16 to 30 people should all be investigated as possible suspects into that crime. If you start off the investigation saying, well, we're going to leave some of these people off limits, then that's not justice. Now, why does Trump come involved in this? Because Trump trusts Sessions and Barr. And it's a huge mistake. Time after time, I've showed you on this channel of the crimes that have been committed by Comey, Brennan, Clapper, Mills, Aberdeen, Hillary, etc. The list goes on and on. The Podesta Group. Yet every single time they're let off the hook. Even when IG Horowitz recommended Comey for charges. Barr said, no, we're not going to charge him. Now, here's what I think was going on. I do think that ultimately Trump wants this information to get released. But here's the secret about Trump. I think more than Trump wants justice, Trump wants revenge. And Trump says, my family was unmasked. You investigated me, embarrassed me for 3 years. You made up lies about me. And he has every right to be furious and want revenge. But he should have wanted justice first. And here's why there's a difference. Because if he wanted justice first, when he started to see these documents that proved that the Russia collusion hoax was fake from the get-go in 2017, he would have released them. When he started to see evidence of the crimes of people like Brennan, McCabe, Comey, etc., he would have released those documents immediately. He had the power to do that as president, but he didn't. And you know why he didn't? Because in his head, he thought, you know what the best way to get revenge is with this stuff? I'll wait to release it until close to the 2020 election, thereby ensuring my victory. And it kind of makes sense. If you break the story in 2017, you give the Democrats 2 to 3 years to get their act together for the election. But the problem is, you run the risk of justice never being done then. Because what might happen? Well, you might have a big virus that comes along that pushes the corruption story to the back burner. You think my neighbor down the street that lost his job and doesn't know if he'll ever go back to work, you think he cares right now about James Comey and possible corruption? He should, because that corruption is why we're seeing, it's the exact same deep state players that we're seeing push for this agenda of the lockdown, so he should care, but it's hard to explain that to the average person. If these documents would have been released at the time, it would have been beyond dispute that these crimes were committed, and it would have forced them to be investigated. Instead, we hid, we talked about booms that were going to come and things like that. That's right. If no one's prosecuted, no one will take it serious. And here's the other thing, and I've said this, and I get a lot of heat for this, but this is the honest to God's truth. You have to ask yourself seriously, think about this. Let's assume Trump makes it to 2 terms, or he loses this term, right? If the end of the Trump presidency comes and none of these criminal conspirators are brought to justice for the coup they engaged in, you know damn well that means that they're going to continue to engage in coups in the future. Nothing will change. The only difference will be next time they'll make sure they cheat more so that you don't get an outsider in. So basically, this would have been our last best attempt at stopping it. If that occurs and no one's brought to justice, would we have been better off to have Hillary Clinton as president? It's a serious question. Now, I despise Hillary, and Hillary would have done all sort of crazy, shady stuff. Of course. And we would have never heard about this corruption. Of course. But that's the point. Take Hillary and Trump out of it. Would you rather live in a country where there's still a chance that people could wake up to the corruption and fight it? Or a country where the corruption's been outed, but it's been proven that nothing could be done. And so people just become complacent and say, well, that's it. Our vote doesn't matter. Nothing matters. The corrupt people win. There's nothing we could do. Because that's what happens if we have a Trump presidency and none of these people that engaged in the coup are brought to justice. That's what it becomes. It becomes that everybody knows. Everybody already knows. These people, particularly the established Democrats, they can do whatever they want. Whatever they want, and they won't be brought to justice. Ever. The media will cover for them. They'll be worshipped as heroes in places like the entertainment industry. They'll get lucrative book deals. They'll live out the rest of their days in extravagant wealth being folk heroes. Meanwhile, if you're a Republican and you do anything little, well, not just Republican, because that's a false dichotomy, but if you're someone for liberty, they'll spy on you even if you didn't do anything. They'll throw the book at you. They'll ruin your life. And then you'll have to fight. And maybe, if you're like General Flynn, and that's going to be a good story. After your life was ruined for 3 years, maybe if you fight tooth and nail and have your name drubbed through the mud and be accused of treason to the country that you loved and fought for, maybe, just maybe, you'll actually end up getting off the hook. That's the system. Is that the system we want to live in? Because that's the system if no one goes to jail. And don't be mistaken, if it's only a couple of low-level people like Strzok that go to jail, that's no better. Yeah, D. Gulag. It is the most transparent presidency ever. That's absolutely true. That's another irony. Of course it is. We know everything. Everyone who works for Trump and gets fired writes a book about exactly what's going on. Now, that's not to say that what they're saying is true, but we know everything. There's constant leaks. Look, and before people tell me that Bill Barr, look at Bill Barr's connections to when he was previously in this role. Involved in things in 9/11, involved in shady deals that went with prosecuting mobsters. Heck, let's not forget, Bill Barr's the guy out there telling you, without a doubt, Epstein killed himself. Remember? The FBI, I did videos on this. Oh, the FBI, even though Epstein killed himself, the investigation's ongoing. They're going to get to the bottom of his cohorts that were engaged in this child sex trafficking ring. Oh yeah, how's that going? Pretty good? Now, I know there are people that'll say, oh, it's all secretive. Bill Barr had to lie and say Epstein killed himself when he knows he does it, and then they'll spring this trap. Yeah, really? When? And how many children will be victimized by the cohorts of Jeffrey Epstein before we get around to dealing with it? I'm sure people said the same thing in 2009 when the FBI had Epstein dead to rights but let him go. I'm sure they said, oh, the FBI's just letting him go, but trust us. This is secretly so they can cast a bigger net and get more people. How'd that work? It wasn't until Mike Cernovich started looking into this in 2018 that forced then, I believe, the Miami Herald to look into it, that forced the FBI's hand. I told you at the time. I watched the press conference and did a video at the time when the FBI announced they were arresting Epstein. And I said at the time, you could tell it's begrudgingly. They're like, oh, shucks. Curse the media. Curse the internet where people outed all the actual proof we have of Epstein's crimes. Now we have to arrest him. Gosh, shucks. That's all right. We'll put him in a cell and then let him kill himself. Problem solved. That's Bill Barr. That's who we're putting our faith in to have justice? COVID shows you, though, who you can't trust. It might take some time, but any change that comes is going to come from the people. It will not come from government. It will not. You can try. I'm trying. I'm going to run for Congress. I hope all of you do. Run for local levels. Run for Congress. Start a channel. Get the truth out there. If you're a tattoo artist, if you're a musician, whatever, do what you can for the cause of liberty, for the cause of this country. Do it in your own style. Be authentic to yourself. But we, the people, are the only people that are going to be able to change things. The more we rely on Bill Barr or, some superhero named Q that's going to solve everything. And I'm getting tons of heat, like I said in my live stream yesterday. I'm getting tons of heat. Oh, you don't have faith. When Barr said there won't be a criminal investigation, he means because there's going to be a military tribunal and Obama's going to hang. Yeah, okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, Anon, it's looking like that. I mean, I'll still cheer that. I hope I'm wrong about the whole Q thing. I hope Q's right. I hope that the corrupt do face justice. I hope that Trump has an about face and he starts to appoint. But Grinnell seems decent, though he's out now and Ratcliffe's in. We'll see how Ratcliffe does. But look at the people we put our faith in. Remember when Trey Gowdy was the man? Remember that? How'd that work out? Gowdy was telling us in 2018, I've seen the documents. I know that the FBI behaved in exactly the way that the American people would want them. That's your pit bull, Trey Gowdy. How'd that work out? Oh, oops, no, they're engaged in a coup. We now have proof of it. And Gowdy says, my bad. How about Lindsey Graham? Never forget. And Tucker has it. There's an awesome 3-minute video. Let's see if I can find it. Of Tucker Carlson explaining this. But I talk about this all the time. Tucker may be more articulate than me, or maybe he says it better. Certainly reaches a bigger audience. Never forget. We spend all this time complaining about the establishment and the media and the entertainment industry in Silicon Valley and academia. Don't forget, who was in charge theoretically when all of this happened? When the Russia hoax was allowed to go off? Who was in charge? Republicans. How'd that work out? Let's see if I can find it. Whatever. Look, you're going to have to look it up. Here it is, but my computer's crap today, so. All the subpoena, instead of subpoenaing the people that were engaged in the corruption, they were subpoenaing Trump Jr. They were investigating Devin Nunes. That's what the Republicans were doing. You're Republican. They're supposedly fighting this corruption. That's what they did. It's not going to show up. Whatever. That's why I say, putting our faith in these politicians does not, the Republicans are so feckless. They can't even right now, when these Democratic governors are setting up death camps for senior citizens, they can't even effectively marshal an argument against that. Again, props to Doug Mastriano, state senator from Pennsylvania, who was a guest on Carlos and I's show, Pennsylvania Patriot Radio, last Saturday, who's called on Secretary Levine, the health secretary in Pennsylvania, to resign because she told us all, your nursing homes are safe. Oh, we're going to test everyone. They're safe. While she moved her mother out of one and put her in a hotel. Kudos to people like that speaking up. Where are our national level politicians? Why aren't they on shows every day? Yes, you have people like Tucker Carlson that's doing a good job. I haven't heard Rush in a while. Rush is probably doing all right. But that's it? Only a small handful? No. It's time to vote out these people. Just because they have the right letter next to their name doesn't mean anything. And let me talk to a second if you're a Democrat and listening. I know I give Democrats a lot of crap. Let me be quite clear with you. There are Republicans just as bad as all the Democrats and Democratic leadership I'm talking about. Your John McCain's, your Jeb Bush's, your Mitt Romney's. Of course. Your establishment level, it's more than just Republican versus Democrat. It's them, the elite, versus the rest of us. So I am reaching out. I might disagree with you if you're a Democratic friend of mine on universal health care or on, is the United States a horribly racist country, which I think is an absurd statement, but I say it all the time. We need to come together on the one issue that matters most, which is as long as there is corruption of this level in our government, in our media, in our academia, as long as that exists, none of the issues we argue about will ever matter. Let's take care of that corruption. Then we could go back to having the debates on the other issues. I'm fine with that. You need to stop. If you're a Democrat, I mean this sincerely. If you're a reasonable Democrat, like in yesteryear where you're like, hey, I care about workers. I want to party for workers and things like that. If that's the type of Democrat you are, you should be hoping that they get crushed in this next election. Absolutely demolished. Because then you could start to reform the party, hopefully with people that actually care about the constituents. I would rather have a politician whose ideas I completely disagreed with, but that in their heart actually cared about loving this country and helping the people of it, than I would someone who claims to fight for liberty and the things that I want, but in reality is just corrupt and they're just selling us down the selling us down the river. What's up, Paul? Great to see you here, man. Yeah, sorry I didn't get in touch with you, Paul. This was kind of an impromptu thing, which I'll be wrapping up here before too long. But yeah, I mean, that's what's going on here. And I know I harp on a lot of this same stuff a lot, but I'm trying to reach new people. I really am. I'm trying to use different platforms. I'm trying to put out the short form videos. If you really want to help me, please, like when I put out those 2-minute videos or so, if you could please share them if you have Twitter, Facebook, or just share them with your friends or anything. I can't get any traction on them. The video I did today, I think I'm one of the only people that have had this take. I think it's an important take. Did you see the Susan Rice emails? For those of you who don't know, Susan Rice, who is a former NSA, decides to send herself an email January 5th, 2017, after her and Obama and Biden and Comey and all of them were in the Oval Office talking about how to screw over Mike Flynn. She decides to send herself an email that says, hey, we talked about Mike Flynn, but we're doing everything by the book. And so Obama spoke up and he said, hey, make sure you're doing things by the book. And then I was like, hey, what's up, Biden? Are you doing everything by the book? Because that's how innocent people talk. We're talking about, I don't know, take any Goldman Sachs president. Oh, we're getting incredibly wealthy and, but we're doing it by the book. We're constantly thinking about, are we doing anything illegal? No, we're not doing anything illegal. Sounds good. Yep. That's exactly what a guilty person would say. Oh, no. I sent an email to myself proving that we weren't doing anything illegal. So that's what the email says. Anyways, it goes on to talk about what they're doing to Flynn and blah, blah, blah. Here's my question, right? And there's a lot of stuff. Why would you send an email like that to yourself? Doesn't it prove that Obama then was integral in the process of what was going on to Flynn, etc.? In fact, it also proves the section that just got unredacted. Comey admits, yes, we haven't seen Flynn do anything illegal, but he's talking a lot, so he could. That's a reason to spy on someone? But here's the question I want answered, and I sum this up in 2 minutes. Think about this. Let's say for a moment you're Barack Obama, and let's give you the benefit of the doubt and say you actually are concerned with doing things by the book. Wouldn't you then be furious to now know that actually it was done the exact opposite way? It wasn't done by the book at all. So if you're the president and your thing is, look, if we're going to be looking at someone from the incoming administration, the number one thing is make sure every I is dotted, every T is crossed, make sure everything's by the book. And then you find out that your FBI head that was like, oh, yes, sir, Mr. President, absolutely, immediately left and did everything against the book. Wouldn't you be furious? Wouldn't Obama be on television today saying, no, hey, CNN, New York Times, shut your mouth. This is a big deal. I wanted it done by the book. That was the orders I gave as president, and I'm appalled that the people that were supposed to be working under me took it upon themselves to behave in a corrupt manner instead of informing me, the president, of what was going on. And I'm absolutely furious, and I'm willing to testify, and I want these people brought to justice that lied to me and lied to the American people. That's what you would say if you really wanted it done by the book. Now, if you just said, I want it done by the book. I wink better with my right eye. Let's try again. I want it done by the book. And in reality, you wanted it not done by the book. You wanted to bring Flynn down no matter what. Then that would make sense that you're not out there today. That would make sense that you're completely silent about this and still claiming you had a scandal-free administration. So I put out that 2-minute video. That's all it is. It just gives that point, and I think that's a great point. Then someone asked Obama. Someone asked CNN. Do you think this was by the book, Obama? When we have James Comey laughing and yucking it up, admitting, I'd have never got away with sending agents to talk to Flynn in any other administration like that. When we have agents saying, what are we trying to do? Get this guy to perjure himself, get him fired, or get him locked up? Admitting that they're entrapping him? When we have, admittedly, this is just stuff that's admitted. Admittedly, we had the 302 just got lost. The 302 wasn't written until weeks later, and then it came up missing. Admittedly, the FBI, it said originally, we don't think the guy lied, but then it got changed around. Admittedly, we see a judge, even after the Department of Defense says, look, this was unjustified and was entrapment, we're dropping the charges. The judge refuses to accept that. Is that by the book? All of this is the opposite of by the book. So where's Obama? Where's Susan Rice? Where's Joe Biden? Well, they're defending it. So anyways, that's what I try to do here. I try to just take things and make it in a way that people can understand. You don't have to, they overcomplicate it. You got 1,000 people, they tell you, trust the experts, and then they intentionally overcomplicate it. Most of the time, it's really simple. And that's what I try to do, break it down in a simple way. It's still honest, it's truthful. That's the story. But, I have trouble reaching people, which is okay. Everyone who listens to me, I'm perfectly fine with. I'm very happy. But, I have people ask me, what can I do to help? That's what you could do to help. Those 2-minute videos, most important thing. If you could like and share those to people, I'd really appreciate it. Because no, not everyone's going to listen to an impromptu fat guy ramble on for 2 hours on the live stream. I get it. But, yeah, those videos. Also, you could follow me. Paul asked me, you sent me an email, sorry I didn't respond, about how to become a member, because now I could have members on YouTube. I don't exactly, I'm going to have my wife look into, use a different account to see how to become a member of my site. There should be an option somewhere where you click on my channel, where I have 3 tiers of membership. You can check all that out. I'm not going to get into it right now, but that's the best I can tell you right now, Paul, on how to go about that. There should be a link in the description how you can support me on Patreon, PayPal, DLive. You could always give me super chats here in YouTube if you want to support me financially. That stuff, I need better equipment. I'm just using a laptop. A good friend of mine, SJG Perspective, is going to help set me up with some free editing software, but I don't know how powerful my laptop is to run it. So if you give me money, that's where it'll be going. But don't worry if you can't give me money. If I never get one dime, I'll still be doing the show. So don't worry about that. That's not what it's about. But the best thing you can do to help is to share that stuff. So yeah, I apologize. Again, I started off the video saying normally 10 o'clock on Thursday nights is my show on Sarah Corrier's channel. We just had a conflict of schedule, so it wasn't able to happen tonight, but everything will be fine. I'm assuming we'll start that up some point in the future, as long as our schedules allow. So, yeah, unfortunately that won't happen tonight, but thank you all for being here. You're right, we've known all of this since 2070. Yeah, open carry more. That's, your Second Amendment's important. They're taking away your First Amendment. The second will be next. Thanks. My buddy Preacher, who I haven't seen in a while, sent me this background. So thanks to him. Also, again, thanks to my friends Anton and Tyler, who sent me the new shirts, if you guys didn't see. Which, I don't know if I'll sell these or I'll just send them out to people that subscribe to me or something like that. So, yeah, thanks to them. Thanks to my buddy Drone Tech that helps me out a lot. One of my buddy Bob that created my logo, my buddy Chirby, all of the sound equipment you see here, the lights that you see, that was sent by Chirby. My friend Logan sent a soundboard and stuff when I could get my computers, when I actually get a desktop that I'll be able to set up and have better stuff with that. I have 4 patrons that I really appreciate, which you could view who those patrons are in my channel. I don't remember all their names off the top of my head. I have people like Kenneth Nicely and Paul that donate to me all the time, and other people that have donated me. So thank you to all of you. I really do appreciate it. If you ever need anything, please email me at rob.nor@gmail.com, and I'll try to respond to you. I don't get to everyone. I do apologize, but I will try to respond to you. And thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. That shirt is awesome. Again, if you go to Hopper Core, in fact, I'll try to go to the now. You could go to my friend Tyler Hopper that I graduated with. His company's the one that made that, and he specializes in branding and things like that. And this is actually a high quality shirt. Like, I know people that have, what do you call it, like the cricket or whatever, and they just, but this is like a real shirt that you would get. So yeah, there's the website, Hopper Corp, if you want to check it out. And he's based right here in rural Pennsylvania. So check him out. I think this is someone I hadn't talked to in years. And I get people like this all the time. It just makes me feel so great that know me in real life, and they'll be like, I haven't seen you for years. I just happened to see your channel and I love it. So yeah, all of you people, you're the best fans. I really appreciate it. Even if you disagree with me, I think you're all the best. I really appreciate it. So, all right, I'm going to go, I don't know, maybe I'll play Call of Duty tonight. We'll see what the wife says. Probably not. She'll probably say, bad idea. So next thing I'll be doing, I'll be putting out daily videos as the week goes on. The only day I might miss is Sunday, or if something comes up, but check. Almost every day I'll have a new non-live video out. Wednesdays at 2:30, I'll be doing my live stream. I might start to do one other live stream late at night, one of the days of the week. And Saturday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern is the radio show. So if there's a new call signal for that radio show this week, I'll be sure to put a video out. So thank you so much. Yeah, Pete the Patriot is awesome as well. Let me show you. Do I still have it? Pete the Patriot, I won this from his channel. I've never done a video with Pete the Patriot, believe it or not, which is terrible. A lot of my friends I've got a chance to do videos with, but oh, for crying out loud, I'm making a mess. Let me show you what Pete sent me. One day I was watching Pete's show. I just got on and he was having a contest. And he's like, all right, here's the last question. First one to type in the answer wins. How many squares are on a chessboard? I was literally playing a game of chess online as I was watching him. So I was like 64. And I won this. This is actually, if you can see this, this is a wire fence from the demilitarized zone in Korea. So I got a piece of that. How cool is that? That was from Pete the Patriot. So yeah, I think it's important for us independent creators to stick together. If you're an independent creator and you'd like to work with me or whatever, just let me know. I don't care if you're on the right or the left, if you agree or disagree with me. If you're on the left and you're like, I hate Rob, I hate what he's saying here, do me this favor. Find an independent content creator on the left. You know, that's fine. We all have different values. Find someone on the left, but please try to avoid the majority of the mainstream media. They're just propagandists, so. All right. Oh, Michael at the Patriot Hour, another great person, right? Yeah, Michael's great. And by the way, I talk about not believing a lot of the stuff Q says. Michael from the Patriot Hour is far more in tune with Q, and he's one of my favorite people to work with. So we have an understanding. You know what it is we're looking at things on different levels. We all want the same thing, and we all respect what each other is doing. We just happen to disagree on some levels of it, and that's perfectly fine. That's what makes us a healthy community. What separates us from the globalists is they want to censor people. It's the exact opposite for people like me. I want to encourage everyone's voice, even if they disagree with me. So, Mike from the Patriot Hour is fantastic. So, all right, everyone. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much for sticking out here. Please. Oh, we got lasagna out there. All right, I'll be leaving now then shortly. Fat guy is going to get some more lasagna. So, please like and share those short videos if you don't mind. Consider subscribing to me. Consider donating to me. Thank you so much. Have a good one.